Vicki McKenna Show, broadcasting live from the Republican National Convention. We are here at the Panther Arena in the iHeart Complex, which is pretty swanky, quite honestly. Standing by is our pal Mark Mix from the National Right to Work Foundation. Mark Mix at the RNC as well. Let's start with the obvious question, Mark. By the way, it's good to have you back. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Vicki. Good to be with you.
Let's see if you can.
Good to be with you.
Can you guess my first question?
Well, we were the only organization that got named specifically last night by Sean O'Brien and the Teamsters Union, but that's kind of exciting. I feel a little taller today, Vicki. You know how short I am, so I feel an inch taller or so today.
So that's interesting that Sean O'Brien was the closer of the opening night of RNC. Now, if I may, I'm not against truck drivers. I'm not against people who choose to be in a union. But that was an interesting choice, let's put it that way, especially given the desire, particularly of the Teamsters leadership, to obliterate state-by-state right-to-work laws and the enthusiasm they have for Joe Biden's PRO Act, which would quite likely detonate our protections, our worker protections in the state of Wisconsin. Interesting choice.
That's exactly
to put
right.
in a city like Wisconsin, too.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think the president, the former president, maybe future President Donald Trump, wanted to appeal to a larger base. And I think Sean O'Brien, to his credit, is a wise guy. He understands that a great majority of his members are going to be supporting Donald Trump this year. And so the idea of going out and being overtly against Donald Trump is probably something he doesn't want to do. He's a politician as well. He talked about winning his election last year as a reform candidate, I guess 2 years ago now. But it's interesting. The one thing that when Trump went to the Teamsters headquarters and met with the Teamsters earlier this year, when Sean O'Brien came out to meet with the press with two other members, they said, what was the most important issue you discussed with the president? He said, right to work. And so the one thing, the most important element of Sean O'Brien's message last night was we've got to force workers to pay union dues in order to get or keep a job. And to your point, Vicki, that PRO Act, which is their number one legislative priority, would obliterate all the right-to-work laws across the country.
Yeah, no, he mentioned nationwide right to work. What he didn't mention was detonating right to work state by state. Isn't that interesting? So that, and everyone's trying to be polite. No one's against the Teamsters members. That's right. Not, no one's got a beef with those guys. Those are Trump guys. Frankly, Sean O'Brien doesn't represent his membership when he sits around and says, let's support the people who are importing 16 million folks to take over jobs and the administration that wants to turn truck driving into automated AI, right? Make diesel trucking so expensive nobody can do it. So he doesn't represent the working guy out there, and Trump does. But nobody, no one explained that the flip side of what he would call, his number one issue, and that is to not have nationwide right to work, is to blow up all state laws with the PRO Act. And that's kind of important, especially since he seemed to be leveraging the RNC for a better speaking position at the DNC.
Yeah, I think that's right. It'll be interesting whether or not they invite him to come over there and talk. I think they will. But, here's the reality. Yeah, here's the reality, Vicki. The Teamsters Union is a little bit of an outlier here. You look at the biggest unions in this country, they endorsed Joe Biden back in April of 2023, before they even knew who the nominee was going to be on either ticket, if you will, or the vice presidential nominee or whatever. That's how bought in and sold in and all in they are for Joe Biden. So this Teamster thing, we played footsies. The Republicans have played footsie with the Teamsters before, back in Nixon's years and other years. But it's just one of those things where what they want is they actually want more government power to force more workers into unions. Everything that they're pushing is not about individual freedom. It's not about individual choice. It's not about giving your members the opportunity to have a voice in their workplace or have a voice in their union. It's about monopoly union power. And, the most embarrassing thing was Josh Hawley last night when he called him out. And, Hawley, who had supported right to work and he ran the first time, now comes in and says this. This is how he frames it. Josh Hawley from Missouri, the senator, says, I would never impose right to work on anyone. Now, Vicki, you know that is he's a smart guy. There's no question about that. He's very articulate, very smart. But he said he doesn't want to impose right to work on anybody across the country. It's the federal law that imposes forced unionism on everybody, including his state of Missouri. The imposition is the government imposition of forced unionism and monopoly representation and those powers that unions have exercised over workers for the last 90 years.
Well, and the thing is, some of the other things that particularly the private sector labor unions are going to own, and that is negotiating away the rights of their own members by trading massive pension benefit increases that are unlikely to be met by the companies. Well, last I saw it was somewhere around $6 trillion in upside down pensions that I guess they're all waiting for the U.S. taxpayer to bail out. But when if those companies go belly up, and they just might because of Joe Biden's policies, all those pensioners are going to be screwed. And no one is talking about union leadership's creation of that unsustainable Ponzi scheme. Those people that they supposedly love so much are going to be left broke and poor if the scheme suddenly implodes upon itself.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, Vicki, because basically the United States taxpayer is on the hook for $94 billion of bailout for private sector union pensions. And it's interesting, about 150 and 116 pensions have gone to the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation with this appropriation of $94 billion. And they've already allocated about $66 billion to basically declining or critical or insolvent union pensions. And the Teamsters have gotten about 48% of that money. They've gotten almost $45 billion of taxpayer money to basically correct those promises they knew they couldn't keep to protect their workers. These are private sector pensions, Vicki, that the taxpayers have bailed out.
And they're still doing it, though. Mark, they're still doing it.
Yeah.
They're still permitted to do the exact same thing. So, before people get, I think what folks think when they see Teamsters, particularly Teamsters, not so much UAW, honestly, and I'm for U.S. auto workers. Let me be clear, but that's what people see. They think of the people who are the actual workers. That's not union leadership. 99% of support from forced dues collection goes to support left-wing policies that hurt American workers, that hurt the potential for those men and women who are working in any of those unionized private sector jobs, to hurt their ability to have sustainable, life-sustaining wages and careers going forward into retirement. And if they think Social Security is going to be around, that's another conversation to have as well. But that's the thing that I think the folks in that room were thinking when they heard Sean O'Brien speaking. They want to be for the people who are paying the dues. I don't want people to con them into being for the leadership.
That's right, and that's very important. And Vicki, I was with a small businessman today. I'm in Nebraska right now, heading to Milwaukee right now. But this small businessman was offended by O'Brien's account that all these business people are greedy and they want to take down the worker. I mean, casting that kind of broad-based accusations against small business people, the heart and the soul of the American economy, is really something that offends people. And you're right, the disconnect between rank-and-file workers and union officials is growing wider and wider. And so Trump could have picked a bunch of union workers to come there saying, hey, we love you because of these policies and how it's impacted our life. But he chooses to pick the president of a union that is basically, losing pension money and getting political power under the Biden administration. And somehow they're equating that too, that Sean O'Brien is the union movement. Well, he's a union boss. He's a union official, but he's not the rank and file workers. And that's why he's there, because he knows, as I mentioned before, that a lot of his members are going to be supporting Donald Trump because of the policies Trump supports.
Yeah, because he's not a stupid man, not by any means. The best you're going to get from only one union, and that would be the Teamsters, and that's because I think the Teamster rank and file is so enthusiastic about Trump. The best you're going to get from only one union, and that would be the Teamsters, and that's because I think the Teamster rank and file is so enthusiastic about Trump. The best you're going to get, and you saw it in Reuters yesterday, was O'Brien saying, we're considering not endorsing anyone in the presidential race. Rather than endorsing Biden, they said, we're considering not endorsing anyone. I mean, I'm thinking, geez, well, thanks. It's not like he came out and said, we're going to support Trump. In which case, you'd say, thank you Thank you, Teamsters. Thank you, Teamster leadership, for doing that. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think at the end of the day, if they actually had a vote of the members on who they would endorse, I think they would vote for Trump. It's just like the UAW, Vicki. We talked about this. Sean Fain and the 13-member executive committee of the UAW, including him with makes 14, they voted to endorse Joe Biden. And then he went on TV, if you remember this, he went on TV like a couple days later and saying, let me be clear, the great majority of our workers are not going to be voting for Joe Biden. But the union officials endorsed Joe Biden, right. But the rank-and-file members are probably not on board at all, based on the electric vehicle policies and the other policies that Biden's pushing down the throats of the American people, which will put 4 out of every 10 UAW members on the unemployment line that are still building cars.
Right, but would you invite Sean Fain to, give an address at RNC? I mean, just because we haven't had a sit-down with union leadership in a long time, get new union leadership. You and I, when we first started going on the air together, Mark, we both said if the unions actually didn't act like the mob, then neither one of us would have a complaint about the unions. I don't want workers to get screwed over in their pensions. I don't want workers to get undercut in their wages, get fired for foreign workers to replace them. I don't want any of that. And if there's a way that that one type of group protects them from that, I'm for it. But that's what everybody thinks unions should be. That isn't what they've become.
No, that's exactly right. And they are wards of government action. Their power is a derivative of government action. That's why they have to play politics. And that's why Sean O'Brien is kind of putting himself in the middle of this political debate as we go forward. And unfortunately, I think people will be disappointed when they see the actions of that's talk, but let's see actions of what the Teamsters are going to do or what the unions are going to do when it comes to protecting their jobs and standing up for the issues that most union members stand up for, like secure borders, like lower taxes and smaller government, et cetera, et cetera.
More cops, save cities. Things
more
that
cops
actually matter, because they're throwing down with their dollars for things like transing kids in schools. I'm sure that is so relevant to folks who pay Teamster dues. I think that really matters to, car makers and car workers. I appreciate the time on the program, Mark, as always.
All right, Vicki, thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on the program. Mark Mix from National Right to Work, and we're going to take a quick break.